Happy 4th of July, Independence Day. The country turns 243 years old today. I remember being 5 years old and the bicentennial. I remember going to a parade. My mother, she was studying at Bryn Mawr at the time, getting her PhD, later become a professor at ETSU. And I remember that my mother, we went to a parade down Lancaster Avenue, which is the Lincoln Highway, actually, and Route 30, U.S. Route 30. And straight down there was a parade in Ardmore, PA that we watched, and it was just, the American flags and all this. And that bicentennial year, there was tremendous pride. And like I said, I was only 5 years old, and I felt it. And one of the reasons why was my mom, because we were, living in the main line of Philly, she took me to so many, dare I say, American things. Independence Hall. We saw the Liberty Bell. There's a really cool place in Philly called Franklin Court. And you go to Franklin Court, and you would, what it is they have, I hope they still have this, but this was really big when you were 5 years old and all this. You would go into this dark room and they'd have all these push-button phones. And this was before the cell phones and all that. Certainly, yes, okay. Now, a flip phone is considered old-fashioned. But at the time, we were getting out of the exchanges. I remember my number was still MI2, that sort of thing, okay? I was very young. It was 1976. I'm 5 years old. It's bicentennial year. And what Franklin Court was, really, really cool. By the way, I'm Marky Billson. It's Tri-City Sports Now. Listen to me, 1420 WEMB Sports Radio or jetbroadcasting.live or on Facebook. Story, what's Franklin Court? You'd go into this dark room, be a sign illuminated behind you, and it would have the numbers, and you could call, you'd type in a number and you would call James Madison or somebody like that. And, John Hancock or something. And first of all, I'm 5 years old, I'm using a phone. I'm using a push-button phone. I got a rotary back at home. Second of all, I'm calling up George Washington. That was kind of big in, Franklin Court. That was one of the big things that they would do. And, no, you didn't have a conversation. There wasn't an actor on the other line playing George Washington. But what you would have instead was, just like a recorded message. That was very educational. It was a lot of fun. We'd also go to Valley Forge. Valley Forge always picked up a souvenir. You always picked up a flag. You picked up two flags. That was the thing. One was a contemporary flag with 50 stars for the 50 states, and the other was the Betsy Ross flag. I remember Betsy Ross's house. That was another thing in Philly, that you could watch. This is where the flag was made. Yeah, the Betsy Ross flag. You always would get that along with the 50-state American flag during the bicentennial. That was big. Here's the flag in 1776. Here's the flag in 1976. And now in 2019, staying the same. And so when Colin Kaepernick saw that the Betsy Ross flag was on the back of shoes that Nike was going to produce and said he didn't like it, so Nike got rid of them. You want to talk about offense? I was offended. Because you really were violating one of my great patriotic moments of my childhood, and that was during the bicentennial year, really even afterwards, being taken to Valley Forge by my mother, and we'd take other friends up there, and, just, like I said, it was a fun thing to do then. You were 5 years old, and you'd see the historical artifacts, and it was something I really enjoyed as a little boy. And one of the things, you had to have that souvenir, that Betsy Ross flag. And to try to say that it's nothing other than a great sign of patriotism and learning about American heritage, to me, is blasphemous. And I don't care what fringe group is using the flag. I always thought that was a bad argument to say that the Confederate flag should be done away with, whatever you think of the rebel flag. But the fact that these wackos over here, whoever they may be, are using that flag, well, they also happen to be using Old Glory. Are we going to, we're not going to touch on that. Now we are touching on it, at least the Betsy Ross variety. You could seen it coming. And so, I got a problem with it. a big problem. You know what I always say, I don't like to see people finding hate where it doesn't exist. I realize logos change in sports and all this, but trying to say that there's hate in the Indians logo is just ridiculous to me. In fact, it is counterproductive. It is finding hate where it doesn't exist. It is placing scarlet letters. You know, I actually heard one commentator, and it made the steam come out of my ears. He tried to compare the Betsy Ross flag to a swastika. And not a swastika used in an Asian culture as a peace symbol. Okay, let's put that away too. Yeah, so Nazis pretty much, yeah, they sort of put a sour note on that symbol as well, you know. But that's what almost you were doing. It was like the Nazis demonized a peace symbol. And now I think that the Betsy Ross flag is being demonized by Colin Kaepernick and Nike. That's who are the people that... You could have these shoes, nobody would have... So, you know what, there's some idiotic fringe group that, you know... Oh, the Betsy Ross flag was taken with the Trump flag to a high school football game in Michigan. Well, so what? Who knew that this was, you know... I mention all this because the Tennessee Smokies trolled Colin Kaepernick, and they actually, behind second base, they're part of Boyd Sports, by the way, which owns most of the minor league baseball teams around here. They don't own, they operate, excuse me. But what they did is that they made, and it is very crude, it was kind of, you had to be told, I think, to know what it looked like. But you know how you'll have in baseball diamonds or baseball fields these days, they will cut something into the grass. I remember the Red Sox used to cut their logo into the center field grass, for instance. An NY for New York Yankees, something like that. So that's becoming more and more commonplace. I used to love it. You like the checkerboard end zone in Neyland Stadium? I remember when the Giants played at Candlestick Park, and they would have a checkerboard infield. Now, it wasn't orange and white, it was green and another shade of green, but they would actually mow it in that way, and it looked great. And you'd say, why do people not like Candlestick Park? And then you'd hear the story of Stu Miller being blown off the mound in the All-Star game and blah, blah, blah. And then you'd see by the ninth inning all these pieces of trash with all the wind there going across the lovely checkerboard infield and such. But anyway, you can do this. Groundskeepers are known to do this, and they put the Betsy Ross flag around second base. So they cut it out in the dirt at the Tennessee Smokies. Okay. And they even tweeted it out, Tennessee Smokies account. Hey, Kaepernick, after a lot of thought, we've decided it's best to just do it. Hashtag America. And they printed, I'll show it to you on Facebook. It's really difficult to see. And in fact, in this picture, I don't think you can make it out. But they tried to, in the dirt around second base, make a Betsy Ross flag. Now, then they halfway apologized for it. What? Look, I understand around here, and that includes Sevierville, or Kodak as the case may be, the idea of saying that there's something wrong with the Betsy Ross flag is blasphemous. Absolutely blasphemous. So is kneeling for the flag. Blasphemy. You know, we really like Colin Kaepernick around here. But here's what the Smokies then followed up with a tweet saying, it was meant to be a lighthearted take on a current situation. We did not mean to offend anyone by it. If we did, we certainly apologize. Why don't you stick to your guns? Who's getting offended by a Betsy Ross flag in the infield dirt around second base at the Smokies ballpark, really? I mean, that's just gutless. Absolutely gutless. And, yeah. I mean, here you have the interim president of Tennessee, Randy Boyd. Boyd Sports runs the team. He runs the Smokies. He run, that organization. They run the Greenville Reds, the Elizabethton Twins, and the Johnson City Cardinals. You try to take a stand, and then you back off on it. When everyone around here, I mean, what would the population around here be? 99% behind you? 99.5 behind you? Well, we're sorry if we offended. How are you offending anyone by the display of the American flag, the original American flag? Please. Who said anything about it? I find that to be absolutely... I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. Okay, the XFL. I promised you I was going to tell you this. The XFL is going to be coming back next year. They'll come back the week after the Super Bowl. They've got teams in 8 different cities and around here. And it seems to me to, in a lot of ways, be the Alliance of American Football Part 2. I think they are doomed to failure if they continue along with the league owns all the franchises models. And we saw why that was such a failure in the AAF when the owner of the league decided, I'm losing too much money on this. I just wanted the app anyway. Goodbye. That was one of the failings of having the league own all the teams. You've got to have individual ownership of all the teams. But it's kind of interesting. They've been having some camps here lately, and among the people that have shown up, Robert Meacham, former first-round draft choice, it's been a while, out of Tennessee. Also, Akeem Nicks, another first-round pick. A couple of quarterbacks, Landry Jones, led to the Steelers. Ryan Mallett, remember him? He's played Arkansas. And Fred Davis, the old Redskins tight end. He's also been trying out. So it looks like they're looking for a higher stock. In fact, they're non-committal on, is Johnny Manziel going to play? There are some new rules which I find intriguing, some of which I really like, some of which I don't. And I'm going to tell you what they are when we come back. Plus some other notes. I got to tell you about those Chattanooga players that were dismissed from the team. Tri-City Sports now coming back after this.
Savings at Neighborhood Ford. Every new Ford vehicle is